going to show you the Atom tab. So Dora has 7 subtests. Guess how many subtests are in Atom? 44. Okay? Right now we're looking at, this is the major strands. Numbers and operations, measurement, data, geometry, algebra, and then we have a total score, the grade level score. Those are summative. That doesn't tell you much, right, as a teacher. Anything in bold is below grade level. Actually, I'm going to go, let's see here. Actually, I'm going to go to a higher grade. Sorry, again, it's sometimes a little bit more interesting to go to a higher grade. Okay, so we'll click on Atom. So let's go ahead and we see the 3rd grade students. Let's take a look at the numbers and operations. Or actually, I'm sorry, let's first look at the summary detail report here. It's a display. Okay. Each of these bars is a subtest. So if we look at numbers and operations, we see the green is on grade level or above, red is below grade level. Okay, the little asterisk right here means they didn't even have, they're below the 3rd grade, so there's no bar. Each one of these actually corresponds to a skill on a scope and sequence. So if we look at fractions right here, this student is at the 1st grade level in fractions. They mastered the 1st grade. They're at the beginning of 2nd. And so let's take a look at what that means by looking at the detailed report. Okay, so we jump over to fractions. This is that scope and sequence of fractions. So partitioning objects into parts, and then right where you see the plus and the minus, that's the instructional point. So right now they're at fractions representing and comparing fractions with like denominator or numerator. Okay, that's the instructional point. But normally those are all the skills you would teach. Does that make sense? No? Okay, so this is a little complicated. So let's say in fractions is a complicated skill. So there's actually 26 steps. You're going to teach this first, then here, you're going to go up. This is the scope and sequence you cover. And the very top levels when you have fractions mastered. So where you see a plus and the minus, the first plus and minus butting together is the ceiling condition. This is the instructional point of the student right here. Let's take a look at the class. So if we look at your entire class, let's go over to numbers and operations. Use selected criteria. So let's say today you want to work on some 3rd grade fractions. We see, here's my students' scores. They're all over the place. So if I click on the sort tab, I can sort them from low to high, high to low. I click on the class button. Now this is that scope and sequence we just saw in the detailed report, the 26 steps. This is it. This one student here needs to still work on identifying parts of a whole. So that's the very basic level of what a fraction is. These students here are all working on comparing fractions with the same denominator. Right? So they need to compare 1/4, 1/4. They're still working on that. These students right here are at a higher level. So this is your groups. So the one tough thing is this is a way to sort of figure out if the Common Core curriculum is saying, okay, today we're supposed to be working on, students will represent equivalent fractions by looking at shaded circles or whatever. You see that most of your students are below. And this tells you your scaffolding groups. Right, those students who I need to work on one and those other students on something else. Math is hard because it's so skills based. So by the time you get into 5th and 6th grade, arguably, half of the students, if not more, are not at the group instructional level. There's something they're missing. So there's so much you have to cover. So Atom really allows you to tease that out and does allow you to say, okay, well, this is what I'm working on. And then you can sort of figure out the data. So let me give you an example. Let's say I know, now this is a little higher, this is like 6th grade. Let's say I'm supposed to be working on Pythagorean theorem, right? Pythagorean theorem is in geometry, and it's considered part of triangles because you learn about triangles, right triangles, angles, and then you learn about Pythagorean theorem, right? It's the ultimate in triangles. So let's click on class. Now, of course, this class is not going to be ready, but the idea is you would then say, okay, before I do this, I see these students need to learn what a right angle is, and these other students are lower. So this sort of breaks out and helps you figure out which students need scaffolding. Okay. So part of it is what you have to do is I would say look at the detailed report on some of your students, and that way you can see all the skills and how everything is broken out, and then that'll allow you to sort of figure out, oh, okay, this is great. I'm supposed to be working on multiplication. So if I'm working on multiplication today, let's do something that's a little more probably applicable. So here's multiplication. We click on the class. Students will multiply single digits by 0 and 1. Students will multiply single digits. Right up here, commutative, associative, and distributive property, the practice of it. And you see that there's your students, your distribution within mathematics, or multiplication, sorry. The virtual support tours. There's tours that show you how to do a lot of stuff. So it could be, how do I queue up my students? How do I, read a detailed report? A lot of times we have a video that'll show you how to go through, or how do I do the, the miscue analysis report. So I would definitely say check out the virtual support tours. So a lot of the stuff we're covering, you can find a video on that. But obviously this training too, is a big part of it. And then hopefully, like I said, hopefully this is sinking in. I think it is. Well, not all of it, okay. But at least, you know what, you take it in steps. Part of it is, the first thing to do is just start looking at your students' data. You click through it, you look at their reports, and then, part of it is you just have to be familiarized with what are the subtests, right? And once you start saying, oh, okay, you're looking at multiplication, division, and it's also what's pertinent to your grade level. Yes? Yeah, it's a tough thing to do because you're right, I agree. When you have the Common Core curriculum and it says this is what you're supposed to cover in second grade or third grade, there's not a lot of room to deviate. But this is what I would say. If I decide and it says I'm supposed to be covering triple digit multiplication by 2-digit, and I look at my class and I see only one student is ready for that instructional lesson, I'm not going to do it. They're not at that point. They're still at math facts. Right? It would be, you would have to say, look, I have 2 kids at that level, another 15 lower. If half my kids don't know their math facts, then I would start assigning for homework. Hey, go to this website. There's a great math facts game. You need to memorize your times tables, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Math Edge is going to be just like...
Yeah, but Math Edge, but I'll show you Math Edge right now. Okay, so remember, again, this sheet right here, it tells you what to do. So the positive level, Math Edge will work on the student's lowest skills first. It's fully auto. So it's not meant to be, okay, I'm going to assign math facts on, or I'm going to assign fractions. You can't do that because it just doesn't, it doesn't work that way. So what I do is, they're done with an Atom assessment. I click over on Math Edge, and now we see for this third grade class, this student was, Math Edge is a little different. There's 5 courses.